And we're live.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Sparks in the Dark podcast, a place where we are going to dive and have been diving into topics related to reading and writing, and also a place where we can have conversations that will deepen our understanding of reading and writing and education. And tonight we have a wonderful episode for you.
But first, we want to kind of introduce ourselves. I'm Todd Nesloni. I am an elementary school principal in Texas and author of the book Stories from Web.
And I'm Travis Crowder. I'm a 7th grade language arts and social studies teacher, and I teach in a really small town called Hidnight. It's in North Carolina. And I am the co-author with Todd of the upcoming book Sparks in the Dark, which should be out sometime this summer. We're really excited to get that out to you guys.
June. You can officially say it's the first week of June. We don't know the exact day, but we know it's the first week of June.
Super excited about that.
Oh yeah, and we'll talk some more about that at the end. But we haven't had a podcast in quite a while, Travis. It's been a couple months now, right?
Been several months, yeah. And but we've had a lot of stuff going on lately. So you've had your book release. We've had to turn our manuscript in. We've had several other ancillary things pop up here and there. So, we've been busy. We haven't been disconnected from the field of education. We've just been disconnected from our podcast. But it's great to blow the dust off of it and get started again.
Yeah, and this will be our first podcast. I was just realizing that since we've actually met face-to-face, because the first couple of podcasts, we still hadn't met face-to-face yet.
No, we hadn't. So this is now that we can do this, we've actually interacted in tangible form.
That's exactly right. Well, since we've been gone for a while, Travis and I were talking about, how we wanted to bring the podcast back into the limelight. And so we thought, what about just since we've written a book about reading and writing instruction and how passionate we are about reading books that really grow our reading lives, we thought, why not we just do an episode about some of the favorite books that we've read recently and kind of how they've impacted us, and hopefully give you, the listeners, some ideas of some great new books, not only for you to check out for your own reading, but also to kind of grow the reading lives of your students.
Absolutely. Our book is about reading and writing. That's what it's all about. And what a great opportunity for us, to bring all of these books that we've read, these books that we've thought about and we've talked about, most of which you and I have read together or read at some point, close after the other person. So this is a great time for, getting more reading suggestions, and also as people listen and sharing it out with a book suggestion that they have, something that they would encourage us and other people to read.
Well, and the funny thing, Travis and I both put our book lists together separately. So Travis picked 3 or 4 of his favorite books. I picked 3 or 4 of my favorites that I've read recently. And then we were like, okay, let's see which books we're going to talk about. And then it was like, well, great. We've all read the same books. So we'll be kind of jumping in, talking back and forth about some books that we both have actually read too tonight. But so we'll just go ahead and jump right in. So the first book I want to talk about is one that Donalyn Miller recommended to me, and that is called Dancing Home. It's by Alma Flor Ada and Gabriel Zubizarreta, and I absolutely loved this book. I wasn't really sure going into it. It's a book that you could definitely use with elementary students. 4th and 5th grade, I think, would be great grade level choices. I know I'm definitely introducing it to my 4th and 5th grade teachers this week and showing them about it. The student population I serve is about 50% Hispanic. And so I've really been trying to dive into some literature that really deals with Hispanic culture. And so when I read this book, I fell in love with the honesty and the beauty of it. And so just to give you a little glimpse of what it's about, it is about a little Hispanic girl who deals with a lot of struggles daily in her school of feeling inadequate because she is of Mexican descent. She was born in the United States, never lived in Mexico, but she deals with constant questions and bullying from her peers of, when are you going to go back to Mexico? What is Mexico like? You're just a Mexican, these kind of things. And she struggled with that, only to then have her cousin, who has lived her whole life in Mexico, come and live with her and her family due to some family reasons, and just the kind of bonding they have, and just them growing together and growing to recognize what it means to be American, and what it means to be part of a family, even when you're very different from each other. And Travis, I believe you've read this book too, right?
I have. Yeah, one of the things about it that I really loved was the language. I felt like it was written in such a lyrical way, and I found myself getting lost in several of the sentences. I found some of them were really captivating, and just the descriptions, especially like the descriptions of the clothing that they wear, or especially at the beginning when where she's sitting. Is it outside of the principal's office? She's sitting outside of, and she's looking at the map on the wall, and just the description of the map and the description of her, of the family member who comes and lives with her, and the way that she interacts with her, you know, the way that she interacts with her teacher. I feel like this is a book that really teaches us about, you know, community, and you know, how people are connected, and what does it mean to be connected, and just a gorgeous book. And I think that was one of the things I took away from it. The beautiful language, definitely worth reading.
Well, and you know, and one thing that my students deal with quite a lot is just like the character in the book, of being embarrassed of their heritage, and of not wanting to claim their heritage. And sometimes because people in the political field have said things about being of certain nationalities, or people locally have said things to them. And it's just they feel that it's very demeaning to use certain terms. And I think that it was such a well-crafted story where the girl could grow into loving every part of who she is and who her family is, and owning that with pride.
Right. And, you know, it's, we both teach in areas, well, you know, all educators teach in areas where it's so, well, I guess this is just a part of the human condition, being proud of who you are, and being proud of the person, you know, the people who are a part of your tribe, if you will, the people who make up your, you know, your friend, your circle of friends, your family, the people who are near and dear to you. I think that's so important. And I think this book really touches on all of those aspects of living.
Right. So our next book, Travis, is what?
All right. So since we talked about lyrical books, can we jump into talking about I Wrote This for You and Only for You?
Yes.
All right. So I recently read, and I was walking around the bookstore, Barnes and Noble actually, and I was looking for a book of poetry by, I think I was looking for one by Mary Oliver and Pablo Neruda. So I was going around, I was looking for these two books, and I saw this one called I Wrote This for You and Only for You by Ian Thomas. And I opened it up, and the pairing of beautiful imagery with these, some of them were really short poems, some of them were just a few sentences, some of them were lengthier, almost prose-like pieces. And just seeing them together, and then when I looked at the themes about life, about loving yourself, about self-generosity, about self-preservation, it was all beautiful. And, you know, we're at that point in the school year where I think most of us are getting tired. We have hit that halfway mark, most of us, and we're really wanting people, you know, we're really searching for something to rejuvenate us. We're really searching for something that will speak to us. And if you haven't had a chance to read I Wrote This for You and Only for You by Ian Thomas, I would suggest that you do that. It is a gorgeous book, image-wise, well, you know, poem-wise. It's a follow-up to the...
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's a follow-up to another one of close to the same name, and I'm wanting to say it was I Wrote This for You and Only for You as well. I think it was, that was the name of the first one or something similar to that. I should know that. Go ahead, and I'll find out.
So I was going to say, you know, you recommended that book to me, and you're exactly right. I mean, it was just, it's such an easy read, but it's extremely uplifting. It tears at your heart. It was really encouraging. And it's so funny because you had mentioned it to me. I read it. I posted a picture. And then I remember talking to Kim Bearden a few days later, and she was like, oh my gosh, I saw that book on the shelf. And the moment I picked it up, it spoke to me. And I think that was exactly the way you shared it, is the moment you picked it up, you were like, this book speaks to me so clearly that you couldn't put it down. And I read it in one sitting because I couldn't put it down. And I felt like I connected with every single short little piece in the book. And I loved the images that were with it as well, like you said.
And let's talk a little bit about the writing craft of this. That's difficult to do. An author to be able to write something that will speak to people en masse, something that will speak to people who can pick this up and they're like, this book is speaking to me. I am You know, I can hear the language of this book. I can hear the voice of this book, and it's speaking to me. I think that is such an incredible testimony to Ian Thomas's gift as a writer. It's gorgeous.
I completely agree. So which one do you want to talk about next?
Okay, why don't you choose? I jumped in and talked about a poetry book. You take us to our
I
next
know
one.
you threw me off track without I had them all in order. Now I'm trying to figure out which one I want to do next. Let's talk about One of Us is Lying. Why don't you jump into that first? Because we both
Okay,
read that one. I read it first,
you
and then we talked
don't
about it.
brag.
But tell me what you thought about that one. Because that's One of Us is Lying. It's by Karen McManus.
Yeah, so I really liked this book. And I was reading it as a teacher who was needing something new to suggest to his students. So I picked this one up. It's hot off the press. It's getting a lot of really good reviews by other teachers, by readers, high school students, young adults are recommending it and saying it's a great book. And so I thought this is one that will speak to my students. So just to kind of book talk it here for you a bit. There are 5 students who are in after school detention altogether, and they all represent a different clique, if you will. They're all from a different group, but there's one of them, his name is Simon, and he's the outcast, and he is the creator of a school blog, Tumblr page, something of that nature. I can't remember exactly which one, but he posts gossip that's going on in the school, and written in a way that points to people and could possibly really hurt them, especially as they're getting ready for college admissions and as they're filling out all of these applications. And some of them are very upstanding people in the schools. One of them is a straight A student, and he's got some dirt on her. Well, during after school detention, he begins choking, and EMS is called. They take him to the hospital, and shortly thereafter, he's pronounced dead. All of the evidence that is collected points back to one of the 4 other students in after school detention. And so the rest of the book is just a complete, or like a slow but sure revelation. You know, it's like the peeling the veil back, if you will, and looking at all of these different stories that begin to emerge. Students are the characters whose pasts are not exactly what we would expect, or we learn things about them that make us question whether or not they are innocent. So it's a wonderful book. I don't want to say anything else about the ending because I want
I
other
will
people
talk
to
about
read it.
it because no, I know you don't. You're like that, but I'm not going to give the ending away. But I will tell you, I couldn't put this book down. I loved every minute of it, of trying to go, because the title's One of Us is Lying, and the whole premise is that one of them is involved with how Simon dies. And so you listen, you read the whole time trying to figure out who is it, who's lying. And throughout the story, you find out all these little secrets that because everybody has secrets. And as you read the book, you find out more and more secrets that are involved in all of their lives. And then all 4 of those students who were previously disconnected all become extremely connected. But I do got to say, I was not thrilled with the ending. I was expecting something completely different than what happened. And I didn't, it's not like I had an ending picked out, but I loved every part of the book. I thought of it like Lost. I loved the TV show Lost. I hated the way it ended.
You know, I have to say though that I found it compulsively readable. Like within after several of the stories, because each chapter, I mean, it's divided into chapters, but each chapter is divided up into like subsections, and each subsection is told from the perspective of a different character. So you've got these multiple perspectives going on at one time, and I found it compulsively readable. I'll admit a little bit, I was a little disappointed in the ending because I think I was looking for, well, actually, I really don't know what I was looking for. Maybe a much more, bigger revelation at the end, like something that was bigger than that. I don't know, but I did enjoy it. And it has made its way around my room several times. I mean, students, the moment I book talked it, I had students say, I want to read that, I want to read that. And so it is a high interest book. It is well written. I'll say that about it.
It's
It is a
definitely
well
not for
written.
elementary though.
Why not? I'm just kidding.
Yeah. It's definitely great for junior high and high school students, but I would not read it with elementary. So just a recommendation there for everybody to keep in mind of.
Absolutely, but it is definitely worth reading at some point. So get a copy, read it, and share your thoughts with
So,
the rest of
and
us.
the next book I want to share is one that was the last book that I read, and it is called Far from the Tree, and it's by Robin Benway. Travis recommended it to me as well as our good friend Jennifer Lagarde. And I got to tell you, I wasn't really sure if I was going to enjoy this book when it first started, but I think this book had probably the biggest emotional impact on me of any book that I've read since The Serpent King and The Hate You Give, when I read those about a year ago. This one is about three siblings who are all adopted or in foster care, and they don't know their siblings until so one of the girls finds out that, I mean, she knows she's adopted, but she finds out she has a sister. So she connects with her sister. They find out they have a brother. They connect with their brother. And the whole rest of the story is them learning about what family means, what it means to belong. They go back and forth about wanting to seek out their birth mother and not wanting to seek her out. And it's just, there's a lot of real, genuine, honest pain and searching. And because the two girls were adopted and the boy has been in foster care his entire life. And so just seeing the difference that that makes and how he feels different around them because he feels less than, because he was never chosen by a family and they were. And so, and they're all of mixed races. And so they all deal with that as well, and looking different than the families that adopted them, because one of the girls is adopted by a family who has they're both redheads, the mom and dad, and they had a daughter right after they adopted her, and she's a redhead. And then the other girl, her parents have very light skin and she does not. And so it's all about belonging and seeing what the word family really means. And I really connected with the characters and just their way of connecting with each other, but also them searching for a place to belong and really understanding what that entails. And that when family says they're family, they're always family. And so that was one of those books that I needed some Kleenex for, especially towards the end. But it's one of those that's in my top 3 recommendations of everywhere I go now to recommend, because it was such a powerful story.
Now, that was the National Book Award winner, wasn't it?
I'm not sure. I think so. I think that's what Jennifer told me.
I think it was the National Book Award winner, and we need to verify that just in case we've spoken an untruth. But I think as you were speaking about that, Todd, and as I was reading it as well, one of the things I thought about was you and I both teach in schools where we have students who feel displaced. They feel that they are not like the other people around them, and they're searching for someone to understand them. And what a great book for them to read. What an excellent time for some bibliotherapy, for them to see that there are other people out there like you. Even though these are fictional people, they're like you. And they searched and they found, and you can too.
Yep. So let's talk about love by Matt Dale Pena next.
All right, can we just say, hands down, in my opinion, the best picture book that I have seen in a long time.
I agree.
Is it not gorgeous?
I agree.
Absolutely gorgeous. So I loved this book because I felt like it was a celebration / exploration of love, hence the title, in all of these unexpected places, like in the voice of your parents as they lean over your bed or over your crib, or the touch of someone after you're rushed outside in the early hours of the morning, or it's an absolutely beautiful book. And I was so moved by it that I bought a copy for my sister. She recently had her third child, and I thought that she has all girls, and the oldest one is 3. And I thought, what a beautiful chance to sit and to read this with them. Um, main, well, one of the reasons because it's a gorgeous story. I think Matt de la Pena said it started off as a poem, but then it evolved into a picture book, and just a chance for my sister in this case, but any parent to sit with children and read to them and talk with them about all of the different manifestations of love. I'll throw this in there. So, we're coming up on Valentine's Day, so it's apropos that we're mentioning the book Love. But I'm thinking about using the text part of that in class and pairing it with the Langston Hughes poem, Mother to Son. I thought that would be a neat text set for students to explore, just because both of them, explore in so many terms what it means to love and what it means to, what love in unexpected places.
Well, and that's what I loved about the book.
That's what I loved about the book. Hold on.
Travis, can you mute your microphone when I'm talking? Because there's a lot of echo. There we go. Okay, so what I was saying was that one of the biggest things that stuck out to me from the book is, especially with elementary kids, when we talk about love, they think of this ooey gooey love between their parents or between a boyfriend and a girlfriend. And just like you said, I loved the beautiful semblance it had whenever it just showed all the kinds of love. And one of the most powerful images for me stuck out was even when the family was gathered around the TV, seeing something tragic that was happening and shielding the child from the tragedy that was happening on the TV. Just all those little moments of what love can look like, and love between a grandfather and a grandchild, or between, so beautiful. And the images and the amount of different faces and the way people looked, I loved everything about the book, and just loved that, Matt de la Pena is one of my favorite picture book authors. I love some of his other books he's written too, like Mexican White Boy. That's another one of my favorites. But this book was just a great book to share with any age at all. And that's one thing that we've talked about before too, Travis, is that you can't look at a picture book and think that it's just for an elementary student, because there's so many great picture books that you can use for any grade and any age, regardless of what you work with. And you're still muted, Travis. Remember that.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to jump in now so I can mute myself very quickly. I love all that about it being for all ages. Gretchen Burnaby wrote a book recently about teaching text structures to students using nursery rhymes. And I think we often, I know as I teach secondary. I teach in the secondary section. So sometimes I forget about the mesmerizing quality of picture books, and how that is how most students, or most children, most adults first fell in love with reading, through a picture book, through a nursery rhyme. And I feel that there's a lot of untapped potential in picture books, giving students a chance to read them, but also hearing them read aloud and seeing them. We've talked about the imagery in Love. It's gorgeously variegated, and to a point where there's just, it's not at all, way too much, but there's just beautiful images all over the place in the book. And the more times you read it, the more you see in those pictures, and also just the story itself. It's amazing. Definitely worth reading.
So there's 2 more books we want to talk about, and one of them is a book that I've read. I'm not sure. I don't think Travis has read it, but I read it as a class. I read aloud to some of my classes recently, and that is The Bad Seed by Jory John. And don't worry, Travis and I are going to tweet out an image soon after the show with all the books that we're talking about, as well as their authors, so that you can check them out as well. But it's The Bad Seed. It is a picture book. And it is a fun story about a seed who is really bad. He cuts in line. He doesn't say he's sorry. He doesn't pick up his trash. He does all these bad things as a bad seed. And he loves to say that he is a bad seed. And then about halfway through the book, you learn his backstory, and that he is a sunflower seed that fell off of a sunflower when it drooped, and the farmer came and scraped up all his family and put him in a bag of sunflower seeds. And then he was at a baseball game and a guy ate him and cracked him and spit him out. And when he spit him out, he landed under the bleachers and he was cracked and hurt and lost his family. And that's why he became bad, because he was so angry. And then the book leads into a redemption story of him realizing that he isn't internally bad, but he's chosen to be bad because of his circumstances, and how even though those things have happened to him, he can be a good seed. And so he starts doing and working on things to be a better seed and to make better choices. And what I love about the book is it's not just this story of, oh, he thinks he's bad. You hear his life story. And he's like, oh, I can be good now. Because what I love about the way the book ends is that he doesn't always get it right. There's still some things he does that people think are qualities of a bad seed. But he reminds the reader that he's trying to be better and he's trying to do the right thing. And I love the final image of the book, and it's him walking away, and it's two other seeds talking, and one of them says, oh, there goes that bad seed. And the other seed said something to the effect of, actually, he's not that bad anymore. And so when we talk about it with the kids, we spend a lot of time about not letting what you've been through in life define who you're going to be, that you get to make the choice of how you want to feel about things, but also knowing that when you choose to make consistent poor choices, people are going to say these things about you. And when you try to be better, they may not think that you're just all this better person right away, but you can change their mind by continuing to make great choices. So definitely a book I recommend to check out and read with your students.
I love that. I'm going to have to get a copy of that and read it. The way you talked about that, isn't that one of the most magical things about talking about books? It makes you want to run out and grab a copy and read it immediately. All right, so are we ready to talk? Are we ready to talk about the last book?
Get it.
All right, so the last one is a professional book. And I have talked Todd's ears off about this one. And I think every time I mention it, he secretly wants to burn my copy because he's tired of hearing it. But I cannot say enough good things about it. So the name of it is That Workshop Book by Samantha Bennett. I had no idea the book even existed, but I was perusing Facebook one afternoon and I saw like a conversation thread had popped up, and people were recommending books, professional books that would help them get started with a reading and writing workshop, or help them more so sustain what they were doing in their classrooms. And as an aside, reading and writing workshop is a term where in that time students follow their passions. They select the books that they want to read, but they read independently, and that's part of it. But they also have a chance to play with the writing part where they actually get to create. And it's more like, a workshop where, someone's building something. That is their chance to build. That's their chance to work. And I'd never heard, Todd and I have talked about switching to the switch that I made to a reading and writing workshop several years ago. And I've read my head off, just trying to get as many books under my belt as I can to create the best environment that I could. And I read and I read and I read, and I thought, I think I've got a good handle on it. And then I pick up this book, and it really did challenge the way that I thought about my classroom, the way I thought about my students, the way I thought about teaching. Sam Bennett is, or was, I'm not really sure if she still is, but at the time she wrote the book, she was a literacy coach in a school system in Denver, or I think it was in Denver. I'm pretty sure it was out in Colorado. And she followed about 7, 8, somewhere through there, 6, 7, or 8. I left my copy at school, so I can't verify this right now. But she followed several teachers around and went into their classrooms and did some observations. And she wanted them, the way that she coached them, if you will, was she would listen to their lesson or watch them teach, listen to the things that they were saying. She would take that, form it into an email, and then ask them several questions, get them to reflect about it, and then send their reflection back to her via email. She showed the structure of their lessons. She showed what they did, how they felt about what they had taught. And at the end of each chapter, which is each chapter is a different teacher, she gives a table of resources, things that teachers can do, places that they can look, books that they can read to help get their classroom to a place where they're comfortable with it, where they're confident in themselves as reading and writing workshop teachers. One of them, or several of them, were about being humanitarians and what it meant to be a humanitarian. And I thought that, that's one of those things that is so beneficial in any age, but now especially. How are we getting our students to see other people and to affect change, affect positive change in our world? So I would encourage you, if you're looking for something that will give you a structure for your classroom, that will challenge the way that you think about your teaching and will rejuvenate your teaching life, go for that workshop book by Sam Bennett. It is amazing, and I cannot say enough good things about it.
Well, and I love that you talked about it, because I remember you telling me about this book, and I can't, guys, when he was talking about it, he was like, oh my gosh, this is changing the way I look at everything. I got to do this, this, and this, and this. And I was like, okay, well, when Travis is going off like that about a book, I know I got to pick it up. So I've picked up a copy. I haven't dived into it yet, but it's definitely on my list. So as we close off, Travis, talk to me about a few books that are on your to-read list that hopefully when we do next month, our books that we've read, maybe we'll be talking about some of these. What's on your to-read list?
All right, so I have the book, The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue is one that I'm wanting to read. This Is Our Story, which I actually have right here. This Is Our Story by Ashley Elston. I picked this up at the bookstore the other night. I want to read it. Scythe by Neal Shusterman. I have heard repeatedly, friends of mine have read it, and they've said, you've got to read it, you got to read it, you got to read it. And I'm like, okay, I will do that as soon. So those are the three that I would love to have on my list, or that I have on my list to read as soon as possible.
Okay, so I am so excited to share about my three, and there's specific reasons. So first of all, I love listening to audiobooks in addition to reading a book that I've held in my hand. And so the audiobook that is next on my list is called Refugee. This is a book that you've read, right, Travis?
It's amazing.
So I can't wait to listen to that. That's my audiobook that I'm listening to next. And then I have actually just got some of these books in Amazon, the mail today. So one of them is I got from my good friend, Stephen Lampkin. He got me the book Out of My Mind, which is by Sharon Draper. And I've been dying to read this book. I know Travis has read this too. So this is going to be a great one to read, just about a girl who can't speak. And so it's a lot more than that, but I'm really excited about that one. My buddy Jennifer Lagarde recommended Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus, and that one is by Dusty Bowling. So I'm super pumped to read that one. I think she recommended that one to you as well, Travis. So we'll see who gets to it first. And then the book that I am really excited about. So last year, I got a pre-release copy from Scholastic of Sally Pluh's book, The Someday Birds. And I loved the story so much. It's about a little boy with autism, and his dad's in the hospital, and they take a family road trip to go see him, and he wants to see all these birds before he gets there, because they always had this list. But I just love I love when stories, the main character isn't your stereotypical character. Well, Sally Pluh just came out like last week with her new book called Stanley Will Probably Be Fine. And it is another book that deals with a character that is not as well, quote unquote, normal or like everyone else. And I cannot wait to read this book from her, because she's a newer author. This is only her second book, but I love Sally Pluh. She is the sweetest lady. And so those three are my three to-read books until I put more on the list and then rearrange and shift, as you know we like to do, Travis, right? You're muted, Travis.
So in the backs of my students' notebooks, I have them to keep a to-read list. And several of my students asked me last week, because we did an activity identifying genre gaps, and they said, do these need to be in any specific order? And I was like, no, don't do that, because you'll disappoint yourself. You'll try to read them in order, and that's not how a reading life really works. We make a list, but it's, we follow what our passion is at the moment. We follow what our interest is at that time.
I love that. And Travis just mentioned that that he wrote a beautiful blog post that just came out. If you haven't checked out Travis's blog on teachermantrav.com, he just wrote a great one about genres and making sure that you're identifying the gaps in your own reading life, maybe genres you're not reading. So just a shout out to that. But in closing, so that we can let our viewers go, we are doing another episode tomorrow night. And Travis, I am really excited about this episode.
I am super excited about this one. I'm going to give you the awesome opportunity to share who our guest is, because you and I are both super.
Thank you. So we're tweeting out an image right after the show, but next week, tomorrow, our guest is both of one of ours educational heroes, wonderful friend, the person who can make us laugh hysterically, and who is one of the best book talkers and most inspiring people, and it is Jennifer Lagarde, also known as Library Girl online. But she'll be on, and we'll talk about diversifying the books you're reading. We're going to talk about a book that all three of us just recently read, and that she had a chat about on her 2Gens book club chat, called The 57 Bus. And just kind of how that has impacted us in our thinking. And knowing Jennifer, it'll probably be a bunch of other topics too. But if you only listen, if you're not really sure if you should check it out or not, just Jennifer's accent alone is worth listening to the show for, right, Travis?
And her personality. She's just got an engaging personality.
A spitfire for sure. I could talk to her all day long, and I'm laughing constantly the whole time. But we want to thank y'all. Go ahead.
No, she's an amazing person. Definitely need to tune in, because every time I talk to her, I learn something new. And she is a wonderful resource for teachers, friendships, books, everything. Wonderful resource.
Yep. So check us out for tomorrow's episode. And if you're listening online, it's just the next episode up, episode 5. So thank you, everybody, for being here. We hope that you check out some of the books we've recommended today. And if you do check them out, tweet to Travis and I. I am at TechNinjaTodd on Twitter. Travis is at TeacherManTrav. Or you can check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/Sparks with no A. So SPRKS in the dark. Or you can just search Sparks in the Dark for the Facebook page. Share with us the book that you are reading, and we are going to select one winner to win a free book from us, of a book that maybe we've advertised that we're going to check out here soon. So use the hashtag SparksInTheDark on Twitter so we can find your tweets. But we hope you all enjoyed today's show, and we will talk to you all soon.
Thank you for listening, guys.